Now that we have our master disk for Windows 11, let's go ahead and create one for Windows Server 2022. That's the primary operating system that we're going to use in these labs as we move forward. So let's go ahead and create one. I'm going to go into New Virtual Machine. I'm going to choose Next. My students have to name their virtual machines with their first initial last name, so I'll do that. This is going to be Windows Server 2022 Data Center Edition Master Disk. And then I have that extra really fast SSD, so I'll go ahead and put this new virtual machine on that as well. I'll choose Select. I'll choose Next. I'm going to do a Generation 2 and choose Next. Now from here, I am going to allocate 4 gigs of memory to this machine. There we go. And I'm going to turn off dynamic memory. Now, if your machine, your physical machine that you've installed Hyper-V on, that you're going to run these virtual machines on, does not have a lot of memory, leave this checked. Because what it does is, we've indicated as we install the operating system's going to say, okay, I've got enough memory to install, even though it's not going to be allocated all of the memory if you choose dynamic. So you can save yourself a bunch of physical RAM by using that dynamic. Okay, I have a bunch of RAM. I've got 64 gigs of RAM in this laptop, so I'm good to go. I'm going to choose default switch. Here I'm going to go ahead and make this a 60 gig hard drive. I'll choose Next. I do want to install an operating system from an ISO that I downloaded from the Microsoft Azure accounts. So I'll go grab that real quick. And I'll choose Next. And at this point, I'm finished. I will go ahead and say Finish, and it will instantiate the new virtual machine. We notice up here that it has created it. Now, before we start the install, I want to change some settings. So I'm going to go into Settings. And the first thing I'm going to do is turn off checkpoints. This is a master disk. I only intend to use this as it pertains, to utilizing the virtual hard disk that I'm creating with all the updates and etc. to create new servers. So I'm never going to use this one in production or in any testing, as I indicated previously. So I'll turn that off. Under security, I'm going to turn on Enable Trusted Platform. Windows Server 2022 requires that TPM now. I'm going to give it 2 processors. And I'm ready to install. So I'll apply these. I'll say OK. And now I can start up the machine. Now for me, this goes so quickly on an SSD that I can't get it the first time. I'm not even going to try this time. What I'll do is I'll get it to come up. Notice it says, okay, you didn't select a key. So I'll hit Control-Alt-Delete. I'll grab that Enter key real quick, and it will start loading the files. So at this point, I'm going to choose Next, Install, and I will put in the license key that I have. Again, if you don't have a license key, just select I don't have a license key, and you will get a trial version of the software. Let me pause while I put in my data center license key. So I've entered my license key, and it accepted it. Since these are master disk images that I'm going to use for learning purposes, a little bit easier with the desktop. We'll get into doing core servers later, so we'll choose the desktop experience. I will accept the license agreement. I will choose custom install. There's the 60 gig virtual hard disk that I created, that .vhdx file, and I'll choose Next. Now at this point, I'll pause while it does all the updates and reboots for the first time. So now I've gone ahead and given it a temporary password. Looks like I typed it in wrong, so I'll do that again. And it'll start up. Once I log into the machine, I will add it to the network so it gains internet access, and then I will go ahead and install the updates. Now I'm going to do this a little bit differently this time. I'm not going to use the graphical user interface. I'm going to use sort of a hybrid of PowerShell. So what I mean by that is I'm going to type PowerShell, open up PowerShell, and at this point I'm going to use the sconfig command. So this is a way that you can do all of the basic server computer configurations, the server name, IP addressing, network, etc., via a command shell module. So at this point, all I want to do is install updates. So I'll choose 6. Remember, this whole machine is going to be wiped of any specific information, the GUID, etc. I'll do 1, and now I'll pause while we hurry up and wait for updates to install. As you can see, it found some updates that it will install. I'll go ahead and choose A for it to install all of them, and we'll wait. Now, as you can see, it installed some of the updates. I went down the list here. Looks like I've got a cumulative update that failed, as well as not started cumulative updates. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and say yes here, and then I will restart, and I'll do it again until all the updates are installed. Now, if for some reason you have a challenge, it'll take a little while for that to reboot. If for some reason you have a challenge using the sconfig, remember that you can always go back to the graphical user interface and install them there. So I'll come back once all the updates are installed and I'm ready for the next step. So as you can see, I've got all of the updates installed. I did a check for updates. It says I'm completely up to date. So now I'm ready to do a quick disk cleanup. So again, if you've got some major, updates that have been done, those big quarterly updates, etc., this may clear a lot of disk space. So we're going to go ahead and do that before we compact this disk. So I'm going out. Matter of fact, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to open up the disk cleanup tool. And select everything. And let it run. So now once I'm done with the cleanup, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the server so that I can compact the disk. With the server shut down, I'll go ahead and get into settings here. We'll inspect the disk, and I'll bring this over just so we can take a look at it. So 15.35 gig prior to the compacting of the drive. I don't expect with the updates that were installed that there's going to be much change here. I'll go ahead and say next. I'll compact. I'll say next, and I'll say finish. And this process happens pretty quickly that it will compact the disk. And don't you love it? Well, nothing like showing you real time what happens. It looks like there is an error here. So I'm going to note that error, restart the computer, and we'll finish this up. All right, so let's go ahead and try to compact the disk one more time. That error would not, and this time looks like it did finish. The error would not go away, so I did again have to reboot. So I'll have to do some research on that later on. So there we go. That's all done. Now what we're ready to do is jump back into the virtual machine and run Sysprep. Back into the server, we'll go ahead and open up Explorer. Go out to the C drive, Windows folder, System32. Sysprep, and run Sysprep. Now again, you can do this with the PowerShell and a few options should you choose. I'm going to make sure that I do the out-of-box experience that I generate, and because I'm going to use this as a master, I don't want it to reboot, so I'll say OK. Now again, once this runs and completes, it's going to go ahead and shut down this server, and then we've got that virtual hard disk ready to go with the updates, ready to make as many virtual machines as we need. Take care.